Greetings and welcome to our podcast one more time. This is the Knowledge in Action podcast brought to you by MSTCDC based in Arusha in partnership with the Danida Fellowship Center in Denmark. This podcast is committed to promoting learning and transformation of knowledge into action. The podcast exists as part of a partnership between the Danida Fellowship Center and the MS Training Center for Development Cooperation, a partnership that seeks to promote democracy and governance, stability, and green transition. Today, we are going to be having a conversation about the regional integration process in the East Africa community. We are having this conversation as part of one of the activities that is being sponsored by the Danida Fellowship Center and happening at the MS Training Center for Development Cooperation. This is the East Africa Community Youth Fellowship, a flagship fellowship by the ULEAD program, Africa's #1 youth leadership program, premier leadership program that seeks to empower young people to be able to participate in decision making in the continent. As part of this conversation, we are going to be exploring how far the regional integration process has gone. We are also going to be looking at the role of young people in the regional integration process. To assist me in executing this conversation, I have a powerful panel of excellencies who are part of the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform. For your information, the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform is an initiative of the Secretary General's office, and this is his platform in which he encourages young people to participate in the regional integration process. You become an ambassador by participating in an elaborate debate process, a regional debate process, that then elevates those who become ambassadors and deputy ambassadors. In our last episode, we were speaking to the ambassadors here, and they had a lot to say about an SDG course that they attended in Denmark, and of course, the action plan that they created on climate justice. In this episode, we are going to be having a conversation with their deputies who will be telling us what it is like to be an East Africa Community Youth Ambassador and what the new ambassadors who are going to be coming into office very soon are to expect from that as part of youth participation in promoting regional integration. To help me with this conversation, I'm going to introduce my guest. From my extreme left, I have Her Excellency Chelsea Inyumba Baguma, Her Excellency the Deputy Ambassador from Rwanda. We have Princess Nshuti, Her Excellency the Deputy Ambassador from Uganda. And we also have a surprise guest, a former ambassador. They always say once an ambassador, always an ambassador. We have Her Excellency Mercy Awino, former ambassador former EAC youth ambassador for Uganda. And on my immediate left, I have another deputy ambassador from Kenya, Her Excellency Esther Gitau.
Thank you.
Let's dive right into the conversation. What is this regional integration process all about? Let me start with you, Mercy.
The East African Community Regional Integration, its mission is to widen and deepen economic, political, and cultural integration in order to improve the quality of life of the people of East Africa through a number of very, very vital processes that have been put in place in the East African community policy. Yeah. But it's generally about making sure that as East African community states, we are moving together politically, economically, and socially. And when you look at the tenets of the integration process, we have the establishment of a customs union, of establishing the common market, and then also a political federation and a monetary union in the region. So that is what the integration process is about.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Let me bring in Esther. As part of the EAC integration process, what steps had the EAC planned to engage in order to promote the regional integration? What steps had they planned in order to promote this integration, and how far has this process gone?
Okay, so as my colleague Mercy had earlier on echoed that there are 4 tenets of the integration. As of now, the EAC is on the 3rd one. The first one was the customs union, and the protocol was ratified in 2005. Then the second one, which we are all a benefit of, is the common market one that was ratified in 2010, and then the monetary union. So as of now, we have not yet achieved the goals of the monetary union, as well as the political federation, which is still under deliberations and talks. So for the monetary union is to have that the EAC region has a common currency. So it's still a work in progress as well as the political federation. So I will say we have achieved the customs union as well as the common market.
Moving from the presentation that Esther has given us, I am curious what benefits have arisen from the customs union for young people. Mercy, if you could share with us some of your thinking around what benefits they are getting out of the customs union.
So the customs union the protocol became operational in 2010. And its major objective was to liberalize intra-regional trade amongst the East African community, partner states. And the way that works is that there is an establishment of a common external tariff on goods that are being exported from outside of the region. But then when goods are being transferred and being moved from one partner state to another, then there is no tariff that is levied on those goods. So what that means for the youth in business and for every other startup or business that is being carried out by members of the partner states is that they enjoy a protectionism that has been made possible by the customs union. So once we have goods that are being produced in Uganda and they're being moved to Kenya, you will realize that the tariffs that are levied on them is not the same as a good that is coming in from Ghana, for example, into the East African region. So what that does is that it encourages trade and production of goods by members of the partner states, because then the level of taxes that they are that is being levied on them is much lower. So that reduces their cost of production and eventually it boosts the businesses that they do. And then also when you have that common external tariff, what that means is that when it boosts businesses of the people in the member states, then they have the balance of trade is at a better position than those goods that are being brought from outside of the region.
Maybe the question that is floating in my mind as you're speaking is what does this then mean for or portend for small and micro enterprises, which are the ones that are mostly owned by young people?
Yes. So usually when you look at like the general economy, even when you're looking at just individual partner state economy, when the goods that are being produced by the nationals are competing with goods that are imported without any sort of protectionist policy from the government, it brings down the trade, because small businesses do not have the kind of profit margins that these other foreign companies have to boost their production. So it helps the small medium enterprises and these informal businesses to thrive, because then they are being protected by the government. They are getting lower taxes, and in business, all that matters really is the cost of production. So once your cost of production is low, then that means you can survive and you can actually thrive in a better manner. But also, the customs union helps in terms of movement of raw materials. There are certain raw materials that you can get from Uganda, which you might not necessarily get in Rwanda. So this customs union helps the producers in Rwanda to get raw materials easily from another partner state, instead of having to import this, or instead of having to import it but at a higher rate from another country that is outside of the community.
Amazing benefits for the region. Let me come back to Esther. What are some of the benefits of the Common Market Protocol to the young people of this region of the East Africa community?
Thank you. So for the Common Market Protocol, it gives force to the 4 treaty freedoms in the EAC treaty, as well as the 2 rights that are there. So some of these freedoms are the freedom of free movement of people, goods, services, labor, as well as capital. And then the rights to establishment and the rights of residents. So when you look at these freedoms, and I'll give an example of my travel here to Arusha, when you have free movement of people, compared to earlier times where you would have needed a visa, I only needed a passport and a yellow fever card. During COVID times, you needed a COVID certificate. But for now, you only need a passport and the yellow fever card. In some instances, for those who do not have passports, there are those who are given permits. So that isn't the process, because if you needed a visa, then it would mean if you also don't have a passport, you have to go through the passport process. And then from there, you go to the embassy for you to get a visa. And maybe you're coming for only 1 day or 2. So it has reduced the intensity of the process and made it a bit easier. Then in terms of making the region having a single market, it has created larger markets. During our sessions last week, we had a chance to go to Usa River Market. And by coincidence, we met a seller who's a Kenyan, and you can see the benefits of having a common market. And we had discussions with her, and some of the benefits she was sharing is having easy access of the borders, such that when you're moving from one border to another with goods, it's easier for you to do business and get products from one capital city in a partner state to another. And then the other one would be social development, resulting from addressing issues of peace and political stability in all this process, and stimulating investment and industrialization. But again, it's important to note that the free movement of people and labor and all that is not absolute. So there are instances where it can be limited. So, for example, during COVID, it was limited because of public health. It can also be limited because of public security as well as public policy.
Very profound information. As you had Esther talking about a session last week, she's referring to the East Africa Community Youth Fellowship, which they are gathered here in Arusha to participate in. This group of excellencies forms part of a group of 29 fellows who were selected out of 752 applicants to be part of the first cohort of the East Africa Community Youth Fellowship, an initiative again that is being implemented by the MSTCDC in partnership with the East Africa Community and a few other partners that we have brought on board to assist us with the technical development of the partnership, including the Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete Foundation, the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center, and the Emerging Leaders Foundation. These groups have brought the fellows together to learn, and last week they were engaging in a lesson on self-leadership and self-management as a key and tool for leading others. As part of this process, they visited the marketplace, and you heard what the seller or the hawker in the market had to say about the Common Market Protocol. These are not just stories coming from the EAC. These are real life experiences of people who are already benefiting from the Common Market Protocol and the Customs Union. So there are great things happening, and the young people listening to this podcast need to take some time to figure out how they can take advantage of those. Is it all rosy? Maybe I need to bring Princess Shoot into this conversation to talk about whether both the two pillars of the Customs Union and the Common Market Protocol have worked perfectly, or there are certain pending areas that still need to be worked on.
All right. So first of all, as much as there's like a number of things that have been done from what Esther and Mercy have said, you can tell that there's been quite the progress in it. But then there's also situations where I don't think it's fully been integrated as it should be. Because what's on paper and what's on ground can't exactly be as expected.
What are some of those challenges that you have seen that may necessarily be on paper but are not necessarily on the ground?
So I would mostly go back to where we were talking about labor freely working in different countries, and I'll start with the fact that as a Ugandan, you can't work as a lawyer in Kenya, and I don't think that should be an issue if what's on paper is what is on ground, because we are studying the same things, we're doing the same, like you're doing the same courses, it should be the same. You shouldn't have an issue like that. But then also, there's also the fact that people don't exactly know what should be done. Like, I'll hear about it, but I won't pay much attention to it because not everyone is talking about it profoundly. So most of the times, you find that even youth in business they don't know who to go to, they don't know who to ask, they don't know where to ask these questions. So she'll have Esther will have a business, and then I will order for I want to get something. But she's like, I don't know how to get it to you except just go by bus and then or send through someone. And yet there's probably a way for them to actually do it properly. Yeah.
So maybe the question that I'm asking myself is, where then do they get this information, and what is the role of an EAC youth ambassador in making sure this information gets to them?
Okay, yeah. So to that point, I do believe now us as young people that have gotten the access to this information, we need to bring it closer to our people. But we also we don't all have the capacity to be able to spread all the information. Because I'll spread to the people that are close to me. My family will know all these things because I know them. My friends will know all these things because I know them. And even the spaces I'll be able to get into, I'll share these. But spaces I can't get into need someone else to share it. So I feel like we need to do capacity building, like what we are doing in the EAC fellowship. We need to also do it to like for other young people within our countries.
They say you should begin to be the change that you want to see in the area that you have influence over. So if all of you participate in a process of promoting knowledge about the regional integration process and the progress that has been made and the opportunities that are available in your locality, in your community, in your society, you are already planting a seed that could also spread into other spaces. We have observed in this conversation that young people have the advantage of certain tools that other people before you did not have. When we had the comrade Brian Kagoro speaking to the class, he said that young people today have more access to international friends, international spaces, international voice by virtue of having access to social media. I want to bring Chelsea into this conversation. How can the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors and the youth in general take advantage of those platforms to circulate information about the regional integration process?
Thank you. I believe, first and foremost, the youth can be able to give out that information through, specifically, let's start with this training. We've been having various mentorship, learning different things, but we're also having access to different people that have networks that can help us provide that information. We don't have to specifically say that we're going to put it on Twitter. We have people that can mentor us to provide that information. So I believe the youth are being given enough trainings, enough mentorships, enough information, and we are given enough, can use the mentorships that we have to provide the information that we have specifically.
And because you say that we should use the mentorship opportunities that are available to learn about the EAC integration process and to educate others, what role do you think other young people who are not in this room, who may not necessarily be EAC youth ambassadors, should play in that process?
First and foremost, we have, after the fellowship, I believe we have consultations that we are going to provide information in the youth and tell them exactly what we're doing. So I believe going to those consultations, that's when we can give them information that we're doing so that they can learn what we're doing, and then also have the eagerness to learn what we're doing so that they can also join these trainings and provide that information.
We have spent quite a good portion of this conversation talking about the Common Market Protocol and the Custom Union. But there are two pillars that the EAC has not yet been able to achieve, one of them being the monetary union and the other being the political federation. Care to comment about what is happening with those two? Maybe let me start with you, Esther.
Okay, so maybe I can start on the political federation. This is the ultimate goal. So it might not be the main goal that we are having right now as compared to the first ones, which is the customs union and common market. But I believe we still have a long way to go before we reach a political federation. As we all know right now, the East African countries have different legal systems. We have different systems of governance as well. So until the time we have harmonized laws as a region, then I believe we can achieve a political federation. And then when it comes to the monetary union, currently we are using different currencies. And the one in Kenya is different from Tanzania and all that. And it needs more deliberation for these countries to reach an agreement and agree, then what are we going to use? Is it the shilling, or do we need to come up with a different currency that will represent this region? Because issues of goodwill and political interest stand as a hindrance to achieving this. We can date back to the collapse of the EAC before and how it was revamped and what caused the collapse of the EAC then. If we have actually dealt with these issues, then we will have the possibility of reaching a monetary union and a political federation. But if they remain unsaid, then this ones remains theoretical frameworks.
Thank you for that elaboration. And maybe I want to bring Mercy into this conversation. And one of the questions I'm asking myself is this: what role can the young people play in driving the conversations on how we can make the monetary union and the political union happen? Is it even something we should aspire for?
I think that it's something that we should aspire for. And as Esther has said, that political will is one of the things that would be an impediment towards achieving the goal. But then, even before we start castigating the political will, for example, we need to look at the economic feasibility of it. At when you, for example, look at the Kenya shillings, it has a different value from the Ugandan shilling, which is also different from the Burundian franc and the Rwandan franc. Now we have the Democratic Republic of Congo that has joined the community. We have the Republic of South Sudan that has also joined the community. So even before we start to have the conversation, the first thing we should probably ask ourselves is, do we have all the states that we want to have in the community? Because if we decide to have the monetary union, and then maybe 5 years from now we are accepting another state into the community, do we then need to again change that? So that is a conversation that needs to be had. And I think the youth, because they are not only the leaders of today, but they are still the ones that are going to be holding the mantle of leadership in the next couple of years. So we need to get youth that have financial literacy, that have knowledge of the economic dynamics of not only the way these currencies work, but also how they play in the larger globalization space, such that if we're coming together and establishing the East African shilling, when we compare that, its value to other currencies, then it should be something that has a better value than what our individual partner states are having right now. So I think that youth not only need to be involved in political discussions, but also in terms of economic policy. And if we're talking about the liberalization of trade, then that is also a thing that we need to have discussions on.
There's a lot that we still need to talk about the East Africa Community regional integration process. There's plenty that we need to dialogue about, as you have heard from my panelists, and there's plenty more that the society in general of the East Africa community needs to come together to debate, to dialogue, and agree on a way forward, especially if we are to achieve the monetary union and the political federation. While Mercy was speaking, you may have heard her mention that maybe we also need to ask ourselves the question of, do we want to quickly go for a monetary union when we're not sure that we've brought all the member states that we want to bring on board? I saw a conversation by the Secretary General about bringing in Ethiopia into the East Africa community before we embark on this conversation of whether or not we've completed our recruitment process for the East Africa community. There are many other countries that could qualify for this purpose, and maybe we need to reflect on that. As we close the podcast, I think I want to explore the idea of what's in it for youth and what roles should they all play. I'm just going to go around the table to take that question: what is in it for youth, what role should the youth play, and allow my audience to all give a parting shot as we close the podcast. I will start with Her Excellency Chelsea to share with us what is in it, what is in the regional integration process for the youth, what role should they play, and then give us your parting shot.
First and foremost, networking, gaining various knowledge, receiving different tools on entrepreneur integration. And what I can also encourage the youth is to go on different platforms and learn about different things that are happening around the region. Specifically, I want to encourage the youth to join the You Lead Summit so that they can get different experiences, foster different networks with other people, and be able to provide the information to other youth.
Excellent. Chelsea says, join the ULEAD Summit so that you can also have an opportunity to learn about these processes. ULEAD Summit is coming in November from the 20th to the 24th of November. Make a date. Visit our website, ULEAD Africa, and make sure that you register to attend the summit that will be happening in Nairobi in the month of November. What is in it for the youth? What role should the youth play? And your parting shots, Her Excellency Princess.
All right. As we've already established that the youth are the leaders of today and tomorrow, I want to make young people understand that it's our business. Most of the times, it's like that's not my role right now. We need to be involved. Understand that it's what we are walking into. We can't just let it to the older people. It's our role, and we should be keen about reading what the EAC is offering, what we want it to offer for us, what we feel is not being done right, and what they should change about it. But most importantly is I believe they need to get their capacity built as much as I've gotten it built through the past few years that I've been ambassador, and especially with things like the EAC Youth Fellowship, one of the most interesting things where they will learn a lot. Yes, so most importantly, I want them to be open to new opportunities that will teach them about the East African community, that will show them what they can do.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Princess. And now to Her Excellency Mercy Awino. What is in it for the youth? What role should the youth play? And your parting shot.
So what is in it for the youth? I think that the spaces and the platform for engagement in governance, in business and trade is immense, and I think it's a thing that we need to take advantage of. Instead of importing most of our goods from China, from USA and European countries, we can leverage the potential of most of these partner states to mobilize resources from amongst the East African community states in order to boost our own business, to boost our capacity in the political and governance spheres, and even socially. And I think also we need to harness the power of the creative arts, especially as a tool for integration and for raising awareness. For example, if you have heard the You Lead song, over 20,000 people know that song, and the way it unites people when it's done. But even like outside of that, when you look at the music, Sauti Soul music, imagine someone sang about integration and how then, because I mean, music is one of the easiest ways to get the youth. And if we have a population that has 60% youth, imagine what potential that would have for the East African community integration. So I think we need to harness that, and the youth we need to be more responsive towards the strategies that have been put in place by the Secretariat. So, for example, things like there's the EAC Youth Bill that they've been undergoing consultative processes. Youth need to interest themselves in that and also participate actively. We currently have East African community clubs in high schools and in universities. So we need to increase visibility of these clubs, but also encourage participation of youth in them, and then our voices can be heard.
Over to you, Esther.
So for the youth, what is in for them? I think it's a very high time we utilize education opportunities within East Africa before thinking of going abroad. And this can be through the exemption waiver for student visa. So if you are an East African, then there's no student visa. And ideally, this will help the youth explore opportunities for higher learning and to further their studies. In addition to that, this is a very high opportunity and a good chance for the youth to take leadership roles and not to shy away from leadership, even at the regional level. But before they go to the regional level, it should start at the local level. Beyond the East African clubs, what can they do at the university levels? Can they work with the national governments, the National Youth Council, in bringing this integration agenda home?
There you have it. Engage in spaces where regional integration is discussed, where regional integration conversations are taking place, and where learning is happening on the same. And you heard from Her Excellency Chelsea in Nyumba that You Lead Summit is one of those spots. It is your business as a young person today and in the future, and so engage in the business of regional integration today. Innovation and creativity in passing the message of the regional integration process so as many young people can know about this. And you're encouraged by Her Excellency Mercy Awino to use music, arts, and all your talents to be able to communicate the messages of the regional integration process. And what we are hearing from Her Excellency Esther Gitau is that we must take advantage of the opportunities available from the regional integration process, first by knowing what is happening, and secondly by moving on to take advantage of those opportunities, including the student visa waiver that is already existing for the region. There is so much to know about the regional integration process. We normally spend our data reviewing videos on TikTok and Instagram. We should spend some of that data to visit the EAC website and figure out what is happening with the regional integration process and what is in it for young people. While at it, take advantage of the opportunities to apply for the East Africa Community Youth Fellowship Program, where we dedicate time to teach you about the regional economic communities, including the East Africa community, to teach you about the youth leadership for the Africa we want and the role you can play in promoting regional integration. This is us coming to you from MSTCDC Arusha, which also happens to be the home of the EAC Secretariat, and we are delivering this Knowledge in Action podcast in partnership with the NIDA Fellowship Center. We are truly, truly excited about the opportunity to share learnings and to convert knowledge into action in collaboration with you. Kindly like and comment on this video, because there's plenty more that you're going to be learning. Until next time,